Dementium: The Ward is a first-person survival horror game that first released for the Nintendo DS back in 2007. After this, it received a remastered version for the Nintendo 3DS and is now releasing on the Switch. Is it more classic survival horror or just plain horrific? Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. In terms of the story, well, not much is known when you first start the game. You find yourself strapped to a bed in an abandoned hospital with absolutely no memory of who you are or why you are there. Stepping into the darkness, you find a range of bizarre creatures are inhabiting the hospital and you'll need to fight to survive. So as already mentioned, this is a first-person survival horror game with some puzzle-solving elements included too. Not long into the game, you'll find your first weapon, which is a nightstick, which you can use to batter the enemies when you see them, and you'll also find a torch or a flashlight pretty early on, and again, this will be essential as you move through the game. You'll find more weapons as you play, including revolvers and shotguns, and the aim is to keep moving through the hospital in search of answers. Now, how this is done is that you will play for each floor, being attacked by monsters as I mentioned. You have a map that you can bring up at any time, and there will be obstacles in your way, such as doors being locked or needing combinations for things such as safes, with the answers to these problems in close proximity. For example, it may be that there is a code that you need to open a safe written on one of the walls somewhere. It may be that you need to find a few different keys to open something up, and again you'll find notes about which give you a hint as to whereabouts these keys may be. Or it could be a little more cryptic than this, needing to use some of the clues found in notes to work out a numerical puzzle, for example. Now, the DS original, as far as I can remember, had a notes system. Obviously you could use the stylus to write on the screen, where you could write down some of these ideas. This isn't in the Switch version, but I guess you can compensate for this by taking screenshots of some of the clues if you need to recall them quickly. The game is broken up into chapters, and when you reach a certain part of the hospital, this will trigger the next chapter. It will flash up on the screen. So it is quite linear in that respect, but within that one chapter, you will be exploring that area to find what you need to move on. In terms of combat, as I mentioned, there are a number of different enemies that will attack you as you move through the areas. Now, you'll need to keep your torch on at all times in order to be able to see what you are doing, but you can't have your torch and your weapon equipped at the same time, meaning that you'll need to shift between them when attacking. Now, if the enemy is close enough to you, they will be illuminated and you will be able to see them to attack. If they are further away, you will need that torch on. This is a bit awkward in my opinion. I appreciate what they were going for, trying to build the tension, but at times it just equates to knowing there is an enemy just in front of you that isn't moving, but you can't see him because you've had to put the torch away to get the weapon out. I feel they could have gone with a happier medium here to make this a bit more enjoyable, especially in this remastered version. As well as the standard enemies, there are also boss fights you encounter as you go along. I did enjoy these, I must say, but again, having to switch between your source of light and a weapon, especially when there is something that can kill you in a couple of hits, can be quite frustrating. On the whole though, they're definitely an asset to the game. In terms of the controls, you move with the left stick and you aim with the right. There is no gyro control, which did surprise me actually. I know it was obviously a DS game originally, but because with that one you could use the stylus to aim, I wondered if they would incorporate gyro to make up for this, but they haven't done so. The aiming is okay. I didn't ever find myself desperately trying to aim for an enemy, but it would have been nice to see some more modern features incorporated. Gameplay has all of the features needed to be a decent survival horror game. There are some quirks to the gameplay that I don't enjoy so much, particularly having to swap out weapons for your torch, but I liked the atmosphere and the general structure of each of the chapters. Gameplay gets 14 out of 20. Controls do work quite well, although it is a shame that some of the features of the original have been lost, and if they have been lost because there was no way of having them in a Switch version, it's a shame they haven't been replaced with something more appropriate for this system. On the whole, they also get 14 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, the game obviously released back in 2007 originally for the DS, and it does have that 32-bit look to it. In terms of pure aesthetics, it actually reminds me a lot of Silent Hill. I could see this being a Silent Hill game, and funnily enough I did read after the fact that it was first proposed as exactly that, but Konami turned the approach down. It has that suitably grimy feel to it, makes your skin crawl as you play in it, which is good, exactly what you want, and I do like that 32-bit style. Certainly reminds me of games such as Duke Nukem back in the day, definitely in terms of the pixelated outlook, if not the charm. Now, there is some variety in some of the areas that you'll visit, although for the most part a lot of it does look quite similar. Now, this is unavoidable obviously if you want to set the game in an enclosed space, and almost build that claustrophobia of not knowing what's coming and feeling like every corridor looks the same, but it does hurt it from an aesthetic point of view to a degree. And on that note, a lot of the enemies are very similar. In fact, a lot of them are exactly the same. There is some variety as you move further into the game, but you'll see the same enemy a lot, and they don't pose much of a threat unless you're caught off guard, which does detract from things a touch. In terms of performance, the game seems to be running at 60 frames per second, and I had no issues with any frame drops at all, and things ran very smoothly. In terms of audio then, the game again uses a very appropriate soundtrack, with eerie ambience used for the most part. A creepy piano melody is used to good effect, as are other techniques such as white noise, the constant sound of your heartbeat, and occasional voices, such as distorted tannoy announcements or children's lullabies. Sound effects are used to good effect, weapons sound as they should, and I can imagine this being very effective when playing the game in handheld mode with a pair of earphones. The melody is on quite a short loop, and some of these things are used a little too sparingly perhaps, but all in all, music does exactly as it should do, and to good effect. Visuals certainly have the right aesthetic idea, although there is some repetition, but performance is good to be fair, and it scores 15 out of 20. Audio is exactly what it needs to be without ever really going above and beyond. It gets 16 out of 20. Dementium the Ward costs £16.99 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. For this price you are getting roughly 5 to 8 hours gameplay, depending obviously on your skill level, either in terms of combat or solving the puzzles, and with Halloween on the horizon it's certainly a game that you could pick up and enjoy a couple of afternoons with if you're playing it in bite-sized chunks, or you could certainly blitz it in one evening if you have the stamina. There isn't a huge amount of replay value here for me. It's one of those games you'll revisit every so often, possibly every other Halloween, but the production values are quite high and I do like the retro feel the game has, some of it because it is obviously over 15 years old, but it also just has a feel of a game from the 90s at the same time, which is nice. On balance, I would say value scores 12 out of 20. To conclude, Dementium the Ward is a game that I first tried playing on the DS and struggled to get on board with it, and I must say that I did enjoy my time with it more on the Switch despite the fact it has lost some of its features. It does show its age a bit these days and there are more options on the Switch than there were on the DS for such a game, but that doesn't make it a bad game at the same time, and it's definitely worth picking up if you're in the mood for something creepy, although perhaps wait for a slight sale. Dementium the Ward gets a SwitchUp score of 71%. Thank you everybody for watching this review, I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like if you did. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick this game up, or any other game for that matter, you can get your eShop cards via our website, switchup.gg. Doing so will earn you 5% of your purchase price back in cashback through our SwitchUp tokens, and you can get an extra 5% straight discount by using the code SwitchUp. There's also a link down there to Play Asia if you're looking to import any games. Use the link, use the code stated, and you'll get yourself 5% off of your order from there. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.